The year is 1986. The Cold War is still raging. The Soviet Union is the enemy. And in the skies, America's elite fighter pilots are the last line of defense. Enter Top Gun. The film explodes onto the big screen, a high-speed, adrenaline-fueled spectacle packed with roaring jet engines, daring dogfights, and beach volleyball scenes that made military life look like the ultimate dream. Tom Cruise, grinning in his aviators, turns a fighter pilot into the ultimate action hero. But this wasn't just a movie, it was a recruitment weapon. The U.S. Navy saw the potential immediately. Recruitment booths popped up outside movie theaters. Young men left the cinema and walked straight into the arms of military recruiters. Enlistment soared. For years, rumors swirled that Top Gun increased Navy recruitment by 500%. An exaggeration, but the actual spike was still undeniable. To the average American, the military and Hollywood have little, if anything, in common. The former is often seen as a bastion of conservative men devoted to God and country, while the latter is perceived as a playground for liberal elites who philosophize about the world's problems. But the truth is that Hollywood has long been, and continues to be, a tool wielded by the Department of Defense. The goal? To influence public opinion in ways so powerful that they can alter the course of global history. Welcome to the military entertainment complex, a decades-old scheme in which your own tax money is used to propagandize you through movies, video games, and television. A brief history of propaganda. When you hear the word propaganda, you might picture bold, brutalist posters depicting strong Russian or North Korean soldiers marching against dramatic backdrops. While that would be correct, posters and slogans are only a small part of any nation's propaganda efforts. More importantly, viewing propaganda as solely a tool of authoritarian regimes ignores the fact that democratic societies have used it extensively as well. And by far the most effective and widespread form of propaganda is film. From the moment it was invented, world leaders saw cinema's combination of imagery and spoken word as a powerful way to sway public perception. Patriotism, fear, anger, moral superiority, whatever emotion needed to be evoked, film could do it, whether subtly or overtly. One of the most frequently cited examples is Nazi Germany's Triumph of the Will, released in 1935. The film glorified Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party with grand visuals and innovative cinematography, serving as a chilling example of how art can support dangerous ideologies. The Soviets achieved a similar effect a decade earlier with Battleship Potemkin, a silent film promoting collective action and revolution, paralleling the real-life Bolshevik uprising just a few years prior. Curiously, or perhaps not so curiously, democratic nations are often left out of discussions on propaganda films. Rarely do we hear about the US government-funded Why We Fight series, which blended newsreels and animations to justify American involvement in World War II, or the wartime cartoons in which Bugs Bunny fought Nazi leaders and Japanese soldiers. But these too were not just entertainment. They were deliberate attempts to unite, inspire, and manipulate audiences. Today, such efforts are just as intentional, even if we don't always recognize them. Freedom of Information Act requests reveal that the relationship between the Pentagon and Hollywood dates back to the early 20th century. What began as a loose contingency became more formalized during World War II, when the US government needed to manufacture massive public support in a largely isolationist country. The success of these efforts cannot be overstated. By 1953, President and former General Dwight D. Eisenhower decided it would be best to keep the government's role in film production hidden. He emphasized the importance of private studios delivering pro-military content without appearing to be controlled by the state. To achieve this, liaisons were established, budgets were adjusted, and dozens of films and television shows were produced with the subtle or not so subtle intent of shaping public perception. These efforts continued uninterrupted until 9/11. After the September 11th attacks, collaboration between Hollywood and the Pentagon ramped up significantly. Suddenly, the newly branded War on Terror was everywhere. The sum of all fears, Collateral Damage, 24, Syriana. A flood of movies and TV shows emerged, all reinforcing a single narrative. Perhaps the most insidious aspect of this relationship was how the military positioned itself to make Hollywood an offer it couldn't refuse. Filmmakers who cooperated received access to expensive military equipment, expert technical advice, and massive production cost savings. In exchange, the Pentagon ensured that these projects reinforced a specific worldview. Many people argue that Hollywood is not the Pentagon's propaganda arm, pointing out that critical films about war and government do exist. And that's true. But those filmmakers have to work without the free helicopters, tanks, and logistical support that pro-military productions enjoy. Once you see the list of movies that played ball with the Pentagon, it will change how you view hundreds of your favorite films. During World War II, the U.S. Office of War Information created the Bureau of Motion Pictures, which reviewed and revised over 1,600 scripts to ensure they aligned with pro-war messaging. Even civilian apathy toward the war was deemed unacceptable. Once the Cold War began, these efforts evolved. For instance, in 1954, the CIA secretly acquired the film rights to George Orwell's Animal Farm. Orwell's original ending depicted the pigs symbolizing Stalinist rule as the new oppressive overlords. Though anti-Soviet, the CIA found it insufficient. They altered the ending to show the other animals overthrowing the pigs, reinforcing the message that revolution against communism was both inevitable and righteous. In 1986, Top Gun received extensive Pentagon support. In exchange for script approval, the filmmakers gained access to aircraft carriers and fighter jets assets that would have been impossible to afford otherwise. The Navy even stationed recruiters outside theaters, capitalizing on the film's success to boost enlistment. Though claims of a 500% recruitment spike were exaggerated, enlistment numbers did rise significantly. The Pentagon's fingerprints are on dozens of blockbusters, from Armageddon and Behind Enemy Lines to Black Hawk Down, Executive Decision, and We Were Soldiers. These films saved tens of millions of dollars by allowing the Department of Defense to ensure all military portrayals were flattering. Meanwhile, films like Platoon and Apocalypse Now, which depict war as chaotic and morally ambiguous, were left to fend for themselves. During the production of Wind Talkers, the Pentagon objected to a scene where soldiers were ordered to kill their own to protect classified information. After some not-so-veiled threats regarding DoD support, filmmakers revised the scene to imply the order rather than show it explicitly. Similarly, the 2000 film 13 Days lost military assistance because it depicted aggressive generals pressuring President Kennedy during the Cuban Missile Crisis, something the Pentagon didn't want audiences to see. These are just the cases we know about. The deeper you dig, the more the lines between artistic integrity, propaganda, and state-sponsored messaging begin to blur. Hollywood's influence extends far beyond entertainment. For over a century, films have played a crucial role in shaping cultural narratives, particularly regarding war and foreign policy. Through its partnership with the Pentagon, Hollywood has the power to define heroes, justify conflicts, and shape how audiences interpret global events. This is why films like Iron Man are more than just superhero flicks. While Tony Stark's moral awakening is the focus, the film also portrays U.S. military interventions as necessary and justified. Captain America, originally created as wartime propaganda, has been modernized while maintaining its pro-military themes. Even when these films poke fun at past propaganda, they reinforce American exceptionalism in subtle ways. With Hollywood's global reach, these narratives extend beyond the U.S., shaping how other countries perceive American military actions. The portrayal of American soldiers as noble heroes and foreign conflicts as simple battles between good and evil justifies interventions while minimizing international criticism. The Pentagon's collaboration with Hollywood is more than a convenient partnership. It's a calculated strategy to shape cultural narratives, control public perception, and maintain support for military action. Through scripted heroism, sanitized war portrayals, and carefully embedded messaging, the U.S. military has turned Hollywood into one of the most effective propaganda machines in human history. Next time you watch a war film, ask yourself, are you just being entertained or are you being recruited? That's the end of this video. If you found this interesting, sound off in the comments. See you next time.